The sky has been the color of ash for months, now neither fully gray nor quite black, just dim, a low, eternal twilight that presses down on everything like the weight of a tired God's hand. Some say the sun still rises and sets behind the veil, but I haven't seen it in a year, maybe more. Time has stopped being something I measure in days or months. Now it's counted in battery charge, food rations, or the hours between coughing fits. Before all this used to be a city, not a perfect one, but loud and alive and real. I remember the way streetlights used to hum in the early morning fog. Now, the streetlights are skeletons, bent and broken, their bulbs shattered long ago, either by wind, looters, or time. The buildings still stand, but barely. The glass is gone from most of the windows. Whole floors are scorched out from firestorms. You can't even tell what stores used to be on the ground level unless you get real close and squint at the soot stain signage. Even then, most of them are just letters now one or two clinging on. Melted plastic dripping down concrete. Nature didn't reclaim the city like all those optimistic documentaries said it would. No vines creeping up steel beams, no herds of deer wandering through suburban streets, no green shoots pushing up through sidewalk cracks. What's left of nature is dying too, strangled by the same air that chokes us. Trees are brittle skeletons. Their bark peels like skin from sunburn. What little grass remains is yellow and sharp as razors. The wind doesn't carry the scent of soil anymore. Just dust, rot, the faint temps of burning plastic. The climate broke. Before the virus ever hit, that was the part most people got wrong. They thought the pandemic caused the collapse. It didn't. It just pushed it over the edge. We'd already cooked the planet to a boil, torn up forests, dried out rivers, choked the skies. Then came the heat waves, -100, and -20-degree summers in places where people used to wear jackets in July. After that, the fires, then the floods, then the virus. Now when it rains, it comes down in sludgy sheets, hot and sour and streaked. With black, achemical rain, they call it acidic enough to eat through old cars if you let it. You don't walk in it unless you want to lose your skin. There's no warning. 1 minute the sky's silent, the next it opens like a wound. I've seen birds drop mid-flight, just torn apart by the air itself. And as for the people, well, they're still around, some of them. Not like they used to be, though. The cities are mostly empty now, save for the desperate and the damned. Survivors, scavengers, maybe a few who've just gone feral. There's a gang that rolls through every few weeks, calling themselves the Ashmen. They wear gas masks made of scrap metal and collect old tech radios, generators, even toasters, though I doubt they know how to use half of it. Sometimes they barter, sometimes they kill. Depends on the day. Out in the rural zones, it's worse. Entire towns just vanished, either swallowed by floodwater or burned out in the wildfires that came after the fuel pipelines ruptured. I remember hearing about a state that caught fire for 90 days straight. People tried to evacuate, but the roads were jammed. The air was thick with smoke, and the virus was still spreading. No one wanted to open their doors to strangers. You couldn't blame them. What's left of the government operates from somewhere underground, I think. Maybe in the Rockies. You hear the odd broadcast now and then, full of static and empty promises. Stay calm, help is on the way. The Republic endures. But it's been over a year since I heard a real emergency frequency. I think most of the towers are down. The last reliable signal I picked up was some survival commune out west calls itself New Dawn, but even that cut off last spring, probably overrun or worse. Most communication happens over shortwave now, static and whispers, voices carried like ghosts. That's what I am too, I guess, a ghost on the airwaves. Just a voice holding on to what scraps are left. There are others. Sometimes I catch them faint and broken, but human. People reading poetry, or listing lost names, or singing lullabies. Last week, someone played a scratched-up copy of Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World. I cried for an hour straight. We survive in pockets, little islands of willpower in a sea of ruin. I've rigged up a decent shelter in what used to be a parking garage. It's buried under the hospital's old trauma wing, which collapsed during one of the summer quakes. Now, it's just me, some salvaged solar panels, a water still I pray doesn't crack, and a pedal-powered radio that whines like an old dog when I turn it on. But I turn it on anyway, every night, because someone might still be listening, because someone has to remember. Because even now especially, now silence is the most dangerous thing left in this world. My name's Eli Mercer. I was a school teacher, once history, mostly, 7th and 8th grade. I taught kids about wars and empires and plagues, never thinking I'd live through one myself. I used to think understanding the past gave me some kind of edge over the future. Turns out, all it really gave me was a clearer view of how easily things fall apart. I'm not a hero. I'm not a soldier or a scientist or anything that might make me important in a story like this. I'm just someone who stayed too long in a burning world and couldn't find the right time to leave. Maybe that's why I keep talking into this mic every night, even when the signal's too weak to carry, even when the static fights me every step of the way, because I need to believe someone's out there. I need to believe someone is listening. I used to do this for the kids. That was the first reason. When the schools closed, I started broadcasting little lessons over the shortwaves, just in case any families still had radios. I'd read stories, explain ancient myths, tell them about the Ice Age or the Black Death, anything to help them make sense of what we were going through. History, I thought, might be a way to anchor ourselves. Then the signals started dropping out, and the names I called out into the air, Noah, Samira, Elena, Jocks, they stopped responding, one by one. Some families moved out of range. Some just stopped answering. Others, I think, didn't make it. Now it's just me. No lesson plans, no curriculum, just memories, static, and survival. The days bleed together now, but my routines keep me sane. In the morning, I boil water with the solar kettle if the light's strong enough. I tend to the little hydroponic patch I built out of scrap gutters and cracked fish tanks. It's mostly just spinach and bitter greens, but it's something. At noon, I check the water still. At dusk, I climb up what used to be the emergency stairwell and scan the horizon through melted binoculars, just in case I catch the glint of movement. And at night, I pedal this rusty generator until my legs shake, just to push a little voice into the dark. That's how I keep going. Not because I believe I'll be rescued, not because I think the world is coming back, but because the silence is worse. Because this radio, this damn humming, crackling lifeline, is the only thing that still makes me feel human. The virus took my sister first. Her name was May. She was a nurse at St. Gabriel's when the first wave hit. Said she could handle it. Said the hospital had protocols. When they ran out of gloves, she used trash bags. When they ran out of masks, she tied rags soaked in vinegar around her face. When they ran out of space, she started laying the dead. In the chapel, the last time I spoke to her, she was hoarse from shouting and crying. She told me to run, told me to leave the city and never come back. I didn't listen. I stayed. By the time I reached the hospital, she was already gone. I found her name carved on the wall of the nurse's break room. Just her name and a single line beneath it. I tried. I carry that line with me every day. The rest of the family fell apart after that. Mom got sick not long after some strain of the flu, or maybe it was the virus itself in one of its 1,000 mutations. She couldn't keep water down. I did what I could, but I didn't have the meds. Couldn't find any. She died on the old couch in our apartment, wrapped in my father's coat. I buried her on the roof when the streets were too dangerous. I've lost friends, neighbors, whole city blocks. But what I remember most clearly are the small things. The bakery near 7th Street that always smelled like cinnamon. The way my sister used to laugh when she was overtired. The rustle of students flipping notebook pages in unison. Those are the things I whisper into the mic sometimes, not because they're useful, but because they're what make this world still worth mourning. Some nights I dream I'm still in a classroom. The sun's streaming in through the cracked window panes, dust hanging in the air like glitter. The kids are all there real, whole and loud. I turn to the chalkboard and start to write, but the words smear, the letters melt like wax. And when I look back, the room is empty, just rows of broken desks and a silence so deep it crushes my ribs. I wake up shaking. Every time I don't trust people easily anymore. Not after what I've seen. There was a man, once Damas. He ran a small trading post out of a church basement 3 blocks from here. We exchanged food for batteries, stories for clean water. He was kind at first, then desperate, then cruel. One night, I went to trade and found the place ransacked bloody handprints on the pews, smashed jars. His voice recorder melted into the altar. I never found out what happened to him, but I can guess people change when survival is the only rule left. Still, I try to believe there's good out there, that someone, somewhere, is building something better. I hold onto stories, little ones, I hear through the static. A woman who repaired an entire windmill by herself in the Midwest. A group of kids who broadcast bedtime stories from an underground train tunnel. A man who walked 300 miles just to find his brother, and did. Maybe it's all lies. Maybe it's just people making myths in the dark. Sometimes the only thing stronger than grief is the need to believe that grief matters, that it marks something, that it meant something. I know I should leave the city. There are rumors of better places, further north, cooler air, clean springs, fewer infected, but something keeps me here. Maybe it's guilt I buried. Maybe it's the way the city still whispers when the wind passes through its empty towers. Or maybe it's just this voice mind-buzzing into the void, refusing to go quiet. My name is Eli Mercer. I am not strong. I am not brave. I am not wise, but I'm still here. And as long as I'm here, the radio will keep humming. The stories will keep coming. The names I remember will still echo through the static. Because even if this world is ending, someone has to say what it was. Someone has to remember, and someone has to hope. The crisis isn't one thing anymore. It's everything. All at once, stacked like broken dominoes, each collapse triggering the next. The world didn't end with a bang. It just rotted out from the center. Now the crust is all that's left, flaking and fragile. It started with heat, a slow creeping fever across the planet. Summers that stretched into fall, nights that never cooled. By the time people started calling it unlivable, the damage was already baked in. Average global temperature rose past 2 degrees Celsius somewhere in the early 2030s, maybe earlier, depending on who you ask. But where numbers failed to scare people, the skies succeeded. They turned orange, then gray, then a sort of permanent sepia that hangs over everything like a warning. I remember when the soil began to fail. That was the first real crack. Crops didn't just wilt, they refused to grow. Seeds rotted in the ground. Topsoil blew away in hot, dry winds that never stopped. The cornfields of Nebraska turned into dust bowls. California's orchards became brittle, bone-white graveyards of dead trees. Entire farming regions, entire economies vanished in a matter of seasons. And then came the rains. Not normal rains, not nourishing ones. Forests and melting infrastructure. They fell hot, oily, and unpredictable 1 minute nothing. The next, a deluge of poison. I saw a man's skin blister in real time during one of those storms. He didn't make it. Most don't. But what's choking us now, what's squeezing? Tighter with every week as the air.c. The heat forced something they called biogenic feedback loops. Permafrost melted, methane spewed, and with every ton of carbon, the ozone thinned further. If you step outside during the wrong hour of the day, you can feel your skin prickle, then burn. No clouds, no shade, just raw radiation. Breathing hurts. It's that simple. The virus didn't just kill people, it scarred their lungs, turned even a shallow inhale into a gamble. I know mine aren't right. Some days I cough for hours. Other days it's like a stone is sitting in my chest. The masks help, but the filters are getting harder to find. I'm down to my last carbon stack, and it's already stiff. Survival used to mean stockpiling. Now it means calculating how many hours of clean air can I trade for 1 can of soup. Is 1 bottle of untainted water worth the risk of venturing into the ruins where the scavengers stalk? Every decision carries weight now. Every movement is a transaction. Food is another choke point. The hydroponic system I've jerry-rigged from hospital waste only grows what the synthetic nutrient sludge can support. And even that's starting to go off color. I've rationed my seeds to the handful old beans, heirloom kale, and a few sad carrots that never taste like they should. It's not enough. It never is. I trade what I can, but even batteries and medicine don't go far anymore. Then there's fuel, real fuel diesel. Propane, gasoline is almost mythological now. Whatever reserves existed were burned in the early riots or hoarded by the factions that moved in after the collapse. Some survivors run their systems on biomass, some on solar, scraps. Most just don't have power anymore. Me, I rely on solar. When the sky permits it tanned, when it doesn't, I pedal. The old generator groans under the strain, but it still sings when I need it to. Electricity is a ghost. Refrigeration is a dream, and clean water. Clean water is religion. There's a spring 20 miles north of here, or so they say, untouched by the chemical runoff, hidden in a ravine, cold and drinkable. People talk about it like they used to talk about heaven. I've thought about going, packed my bag twice, but it's a dangerous route. Bandits, radiation pockets, and even if the spring does exist, there's no telling it hasn't been claimed. People kill for less now. The virus, though, that's what really shattered the world. Climate softened us up, but the pandemic finished the job. That even the final strains were unrecognizable from the first. It wasn't just a respiratory attack anymore. It got into the bloodstream. It corrupted the nervous system. Some victims went blind. Others bled from the gums. Some just dropped, heart-stopping, like a switch was flipped. Vaccines were too slow, and too few, and too late. I got one of the early shots, but no one knows if they even worked. The virus changed again 3 months later. By then, society had already cracked. Cities closed in on themselves. Rural towns burned down. Outsiders, airports, hospitals, and supply chains all disintegrated. Governments tried to enforce quarantines, but enforcement led to riots. The official term was state collapse. In truth, it was just the end. Only a few institutions still function, if you can call it that. I hear the World Meteorological Center broadcasts raw data from somewhere in Iceland, but no one's decoded the signal in months. There's talk of an orbital station still relaying atmospheric data watts left of the old satellite grid. But down here, it's every person for themselves. I had a friend, Jamie, who used to be a climate tech, said the Earth was in feedback freefall. Every mechanism meant to cool the planet albedo, ocean currents, tree cover was breaking down at once. He explained it like a game of Jenga. Take out enough pieces, and the whole tower wobbles. Keep pulling, and it crashes. Jamie's gone now. Went out into the heat to try and repair a transmitter station. Never came back. I miss him. People ask me sometimes when I get a signal, what's the trick, the hack, the survival method? And I always say the same thing: stay hidden, stay hydrated, stay human, because the world has teeth now. Desperate people do desperate things. Trust, hydrated, because even the poisoned water will keep you alive one day longer than thirst will. Boil everything, filter twice, drink slow and human, because that's the hardest part. Not eating your soul just to stay breathing. Not becoming one of the silent ones who stab first and forget your name second. If you still remember the words to a lullaby or can cry over an old photo, you're already winning. That's what the radio is for, in the end. Not to teach, not to warn, but to remind me who I was before all this. To remind us that even in the face of fire and famine and plague, we can still speak, still listen, still remember what it meant to be human. So yeah, survival's getting harder. The sky's poison, the ground's dust. The virus comes back in. Waves meaner each time. And there's no cavalry on the horizon. But we're still here, and that means something. Even if it's just a voice, through static, even if it's just a whisper in the ash.
It's been 6 days since my last clean gallon of water. I'm careful down to sipping through folded cloth, oiling twice, filtering once more, but the still's broken. The glass reservoir cracked during a tremor 2 nights ago. Just a faint shift in the earth, a sigh beneath my shelter, and suddenly the thing that kept me alive for 6 months was bleeding steam into the air. I screamed when I saw it throw, instinctual, useless. I've patched it with epoxy and prayer, but it's not holding pressure. The trickle it gives off now is barely enough to keep my plants alive. And even then, I'm watching the spinach curl and brown like old paper. The air's worse too. It burns on the inhale. I've been using strips of scavenged filter cloth to line my mask, but they're running out. I cut one into quarters today. You do what you have to. You pretend quarter-sized filters still work because believing otherwise is just another kind of death. And the heat god, the heat, it used to spike mid-afternoon. Now it lingers past midnight, hugging the walls of the concrete like a fever dream. I can't sleep through it. My skin stays damp, my lips are cracking again, and my heartbeat feels loud in my ears. I wake up gasping, dry-mouthed, thinking I'm choking on nothing. The city sounds different lately. Quieter but not safer. There's a new edge to the silence, like something waiting just beyond my hearing. I heard shots a few days ago. Real gunfire, not the echo of construction collapses or propane bursts. 3 pops, then silence, maybe 5 blocks away. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Just listened, sweat crawling down my back. The Ashmen came. Back yesterday I heard their bikes before I saw them. Rattling engines running on homemade ethanol, trailing smoke and noise. They rode in slow, 6 of them this time, faces hidden behind sculpted scrap masks. One had what looked like a jawbone welded into his helmet. Another had a speaker duct taped to his back, blaring old war propaganda over the noise tinny and broken like a ghost of some forgotten army. They didn't see me. I kept the radio dark, the lights off, crouched under a collapsed stairwell with a cloth soaked in vinegar over my mouth. My heart beat so hard I thought it might shake the walls. They stopped at the old pharmacy, looted what was left, set fire to a mattress out front for fun, and moved on. Laughing, always laughing. I don't know where they live. No one does. But they're moving deeper into the city now. Hungrier, less patient. They used to scavenge, now they take food. Tools, people. I don't want to think about what they do with the people after they passed. I found something near the stairwell, a scrap of paper, sun-bleached and curled at the edges. Ink barely legible, but I could make out parts north of the reservoir. Spring still clean. 3 families made it safe. Bring tools. No signature, no map, just a location scrawled in the margin. Crooked Pines. Crooked Pines. That name has been floating through the static for months now, like a rumor in the wind. A place where the water still runs clear, where people still speak in full sentences and don't point guns before saying hello. A haven dot or a trap. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it ever was. Could be bait. It could be the last breath of someone who didn't make it. But I keep looking at that paper. I've folded it and unfolded it so many times, the corners are going soft. There's a part of me, a part I hate, that wants to believe, wants to go, wants to find out that it's stupid. Hope is dangerous out here. It makes you slow, makes you trust. And trust will kill you faster than thirst. Still, it's hard to ignore the itch. That maybe, just maybe, someone found a way to beat the odds. Maybe there's still a place untouched by the worst of it. I spoke to someone last night, a real voice, faint but unmistakable. A woman calling from a repeater station somewhere east of here said her name was Imani. Her signal cut in and out, but she confirmed that Crooked Pines is real, at least to her. She said she left it 3 weeks ago after a dispute, that it's near the mountains, tucked into old ranger lands. Water from a spring-fed stream. Solar panels, cold storage, powered by old wind turbines. A doctor, a mechanic. She sounded tired but alive. Said she'd tried to return, but the roads were blocked ash slides and collapsed tunnels. She was trying to find another route. She didn't say why she left exactly. I didn't press. We all have our ghosts. Imani told me to come, told me I had the voice of someone who still remembered how to hope, told me people like that were needed. Then her signal dropped. Nothing since. I've thought about broadcasting the coordinates, sharing the scrap, but something stops me every time. What if it's false? What if I send someone into the fire? Or worse, what if the Ashmen hear it too? I carry the scrap with me now, folded tight, tucked into the band of my boot. Like a compass, I don't dare follow. Not yet, I'm not ready. Or maybe I'm just scared. Today the tremors started again. Smaller, rhythmic, deep. I can feel them through the floor, like something massive breathing beneath the earth. Maybe it's the aquifers collapsing. Maybe it's the subway tunnels giving way. Or maybe it's just the sound of a city settling into its own. Grave I heard a scream this morning. Human. Short. Then silence. I stayed inside. That's the rule now, Dot. I rationed my last jar of pickled beans. The vinegar burned, but it helped clear my head. I've been using rain traps again, though the runoff's cloudy and tastes like iron. Better than nothing. Better than nothing. Better than dying of thirst with clean lips. Dot. There are nights now when I speak into the radio and don't recognize my own voice. It sounds older, rougher, like gravel under tires. Sometimes I think I'm turning into the static, just another hum, another forgotten signal, drifting in the dark. But then I remember Imani, and I remember May. And I remember that, as long as I can push air through these lungs, I can still make noise. I can still reach someone I don't know. What's waiting at Crooked Pines? I don't know if I'll survive the journey, but I think maybe I'm going to try. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but soon, because the city is dying faster than I am, because the water is nearly gone, because I heard a human voice say you're needed. And in a world this broken, that's the rarest sound of all. The storm came without warning, it wasn't. Like the others, the choking heat storms or the oily downpours that peeled paint off walls. This one had a silence to it, a heaviness, like the world took a deep breath and forgot how to let it out. I was on the rooftop, scanning the horizon like I always do at dusk, when the wind stopped. Just stopped. The birds, what few are left, vanished. The sky wasn't gray anymore, it was green. Sickly, bruised, and on the edge of it, low to the earth, was a wall that it wasn't clouds, it was something else. Dust, maybe smoke or ash thick enough to blot out the sun. It moved slow, and wide and inevitable, a black tide crawling over the dead buildings. I ran. Not because I thought I could escape, I couldn't, but because the instinct to move was stronger than the logic to stay. I cranked the generator. The old bike pedals screamed under my weight. The radio clicked to life in bursts. Anyone out there, repeat. Shelter now. Unsurvivable air, category red. This is not a drill, and then it cut out. The city below began to shift, shapes moving in alleyways, figures darting from building to building, just shadows in the fading light. People, maybe something worse. Panic moves like lightning, here fast, erratic, and usually fatal. I dragged what I could to the basement, the last canteen, the solar cells, my notebook, the crumpled scrap of paper with Crooked Pines underlined in fading ink. I locked the hatch, sealed the vents, and stuffed wet rags around the cracks in the door. I could hear the storm now, low and humming, not thunder. A sound like static with weight. It wasn't wind. It was a presence. I sat in the dark, mask on, hands shaking. I thought I might die down there that night. If you can call it a night without stars or sleep, I turned the mic back on. My voice was hoarse, raw. "This is Eli Mercer," I whispered. "If anyone can hear this, I think the sky is about to fall." It wasn't poetic. It wasn't brave. It was just the truth. I didn't sleep, just sat in the dark, counting the seconds between tremors. Once, I felt the whole building groan like it was remembering how to collapse. The air tasted like batteries. The floor was damp with condensation from my own breath. And somewhere in that long, hellish stillness, I made a decision. I'm leaving, not in a week, not in a month. Now I can't keep hiding under broken hospitals and waiting for the next disaster to find me. This city is dying and it's taking me with it. My lungs burn even when I'm still. My food is down to wilted spinach and vitamin pills that taste like chalk. The water traps are rusted through. The filters are shredded. The ashmen are coming, more often. The sky is turning against us, but Crooked Pines is still a maybe. A maybe is better than this, so I packed a small bag. The radio, stripped to its essential parts. My notebook. 2 canisters of stale protein powder. A solar panel the size of a baking tray. The photo of my sister, laminated in old tape. And the note's the one with the directions. I have 5 liters of semi-clean water, a flare, a knife, a cracked compass.
And hope, barely enough to make the trek, but more than I had yesterday. I took one last walk through the city at dawn, just before the dust cleared. Streets littered with the bones of things we forgot how to value. Traffic lights swinging above, empty intersections, cars long stripped and melted by heat, signs faded into nonsense. A teddy bear sitting upright on a bench like it was waiting for someone to come back. I passed the place where May used to live. Her window still has the faded curtain she sewed herself. I stood there for a while, didn't say anything, just listened. For staying too long, for not being able to save anyone, for being afraid. I think the turning point isn't the storm, or the new place, or even the decision to leave. I think it's the moment I realized I'm not trying to survive anymore just for the sake of surviving. I want to find something, not just escape something, even if Crooked Pines is a lie. The journey means something. Movement is meaning. Direction is hope. The radio hums because I pedal. The signal exists because I push. I'm ready. If I die out there, then I die trying to believe. If I make it, maybe I find more than water. Maybe I find people. Maybe I find myself. Somewhere I left behind in the ashes tonight. I leave the mic on. I'll let it run until the batteries die. one last message in the dark. You're listening to Eli Mercer. I'm going north, and if you're out there, if you're anywhere, keep the frequency alive. Don't let the silence win. The dust cleared 5 days after I left. Or maybe I left the dust behind. Hard to tell when you've been walking for hours with a rag over your face and the world tastes like rust. The storm didn't flatten everything, but it changed it. Streets I'd walked for years were gone. Whole buildings had slouched sideways, their concrete bones crumbling in on themselves. The city I left behind wasn't dead. It was erased, wind scoured and silent, and I didn't look back. The walk was longer than I planned. Crooked Pines wasn't where the note said it would be. Or maybe it was, and the map in my head was just wrong. Every landmark is a memory now, and memory isn't. The most trustworthy compass. I made it past the outer ruins, past the last of the high-rises, now sun-bleached and sagging like the ribs of a giant carcass. I slept under collapsed signage, gas station awnings, overturned buses. Each night I counted the stars, and when the sky refused to show them, I counted my breaths instead. That, at least, still worked, if not icily, then rhythmically. My last filter gave out halfway through the journey. After that, I drank only when the air was calm and the water didn't fizz. A shallow creek saved me, cold, silty, but running. I boiled it over a trash fire, fueled by torn Bibles and insulation foam. The smoke smelled like sign and ammonia. 3 nights ago, I saw lights, real ones, soft and golden through the trees, faint, not the harsh bluish flicker of scavenger flashlights or the erratic chaos of flare guns. This was controlled, like candles or lanterns. I thought I was hallucinating. Nearly walked into a broken fence post before I realized I was weeping. I didn't approach the lights directly. I watched from the ridge, scanned the movement, counted shapes. People, yes, but not raiders, not the Ashtermen. They didn't carry guns like trophies or wear masks like wolves. They moved slow, methodical, quiet. I slept there, one eye open, one hand on the knife. At sunrise, I stepped into the clearing, and I said the words I hadn't said to another living human in over a year. Hello. That was 3 days ago. I'm still here. They took me in. Not all at once. There was caution, of course. A scan, a test, a week of quarantine in a canvas shelter with filtered air and hydrating gel packs. They fed me rice and root stew through a slot in the flap, gave me a toothbrush, let me bathe. I cried again, quietly this time, when I saw my own face in the mirror. I looked like someone who had died and come back wrong, hollow. But my eyes still held something. They asked questions. I told them the truth about the radio, about May, about the rooftop and the storm and the whispers of Crooked Pines. I even gave them the note, the crumpled scrap that had led me here like a sacred talisman. They recognized the handwriting. Turns out, Imani did come from here. She'd left after a disagreement over policy, a disagreement that nearly cost her life. But she'd made it. She'd carried the message. She remembered, and because of her, I found this place. Crooked Pines isn't paradise. It's not even safe, but it's something rare, stable. A cluster of converted ranger stations, repurposed hydro lines, a functioning aquifer. They use a gravity-fed filtration system, solar banks tied to insulated batteries, wind turbines hacked. Together from broken satellite dishes and storm fencing, there's a medic, a small greenhouse, a working radio tower, a wall dot, and most miraculous of all, people, not many, just over 20, a few children, a man who used to teach physics, a woman who builds tools from scrap with hands steadier than anyone has a right to in a world like this. They have rules. They vote. They share. It feels like a dream. Someone dared to keep alive. But the world hasn't healed. The air still stings. The rain still bites. The sun still rises, hot and red, painting the sky in streaks of something close to fire. Birds nest in silence. Insects cling to shadows. Trees grow sideways now, wind-twisted and brittle. I climbed the watchtower this morning, took my notebook, took the radio dot. The signal still works. Better, in fact. Their equipment is stronger, clean. I boosted my range and hit the wave again. This is Eli Mercer, broadcasting from Crooked Pines. If you can hear this, you're not alone. There's still a place for you. I paused, not because I was afraid, but because something in me had changed. A weight I didn't recognize was gone, replaced by a new one. Responsibility. Not just to survive, but to speak, because I am no longer just a witness to collapse. I am a witness to continuance. I've spent years narrating the end of the world. Now, maybe, I get to narrate the start of something else, a seed of a future, small, scarred, but living. I ended the transmission like I always do. Stay alive, stay human. And this time, I said it not as a wish, but as a truth, because I did, and I am. And maybe just, maybe you can too. I still wake before dawn, even in Crooked Pines, with its filtered air and padded bunks and quiet rituals. Sleep is shallow. Years of hiding in crumbling buildings and counting every drop of water trained my body to stay half alert, like the worst might still be out there, breathing just beyond the tree line. And maybe it is, but something's different now. This morning, I watched the sun rise through condensation on the greenhouse glass. The horizon was streaked in orange and dull gold nut, but soft enough to trick the mind into thinking warmth might be more than just heat. I pressed my palm against the pane and watched a seedling push through soil. Real soil, not powdered growth medium or irradiated mulch, just earth. It was a radish, I think, or maybe a beet. They don't label them here. Everyone's too busy making sure they grow. And somehow, watching that single stem break through, I felt ... full, not satisfied, not safe, but full, like I've been running on empty for so long. I forgot what it meant to carry anything inside me but noise. Crooked Pines still has its problems. The wall needs patching in 3 places. A battery. Bank failed during last week's heat surge. A ration count came up short, and now we're trying to trap squirrels and purify lichen tea until the next forage run returns. Nothing is certain, nothing is easy, but there's laughter here, quiet, short bursts of it, usually at night, around the lantern circle. When someone tells a memory like it's a story from a mythic age, vending machines, hot showers, phone calls, birthdays. One man recited an entire pizza menu from memory, like a poem. Half of us cried laughing. The other half just cried. We still listen to the radio every night at 1900. I broadcast. It's part ritual, part routine, part hope. The new antennae reach farther than the old setup, I've heard faint voices, someone out east, another from across the mountains, broken and warbling through the static like whispers through a canyon. They don't say much, sometimes just a name, a location, a plea, sometimes just, I hear you, and that's enough. The truth is, I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know if crooked pines will last another year. I don't know if the storms will come again, stronger, or if disease will circle back in new cruel ways. But I know we're still here. I know we're planting again, and that alone feels like rebellion. Because when the world ended, it didn't do it all at once. It peeled away slowly. Infrastructure, systems, civility, until even belief itself was rationed. Until we stopped imagining something after this. But it's not over. It's just changed, maybe. Survival isn't about building a fortress. Maybe it's just waking up every day and deciding not to give up. Maybe it's planting something that you may never live to eat. Or writing something that someone else might one day find and understand. Or speaking into a microphone when no one answers because someone might. I think about May often, about her humming off-key while washing dishes in a cracked porcelain sink, about how she always believed people were worth the trouble, even when they weren't. I think about how I used to believe that to be for the world came undone, and now, somehow, here I am, humming back. Today, I helped rebuild the water catchment system. It ranged a little, but we caught enough to fill 4 barrels. That's 2 weeks of security, 2 weeks of not dying. I also helped bury a man who didn't make it in from the wilderness. We found his body near the outer ridge, thin, worn, but smiling. He carried a notebook. Inside was a list of songs he remembered from his childhood. We sang one at his funeral. You take the good with the grief. That's what living is now. No clean endings, no bright swelling music, just moments. One good breath, one good word. One hand extended through the dark. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's always been enough. So if you're out there somewhere beyond the static, if you're still searching, still scraping meaning out of the ruins, still hoping for something more than silence, I hear you. And if you're near the old ranger stations, if you see the crooked pines leaning over the trail like tired sentries, come closer. There's a place for you. It's not perfect, but it's real. Bring what you carry, your wounds, your fears, your stories. There's room. And if you can't make it, if you're broken down somewhere, running on fumes and despair, just know this, you are not alone. The world might be gone, but we're still here. And as long as one voice keeps speaking, as long as one light still flickers, as long as one seed keeps reaching through the soil, we've got a chance. Stay alive, stay human, keep the frequency open. This is Eli Mercer, signing off for now, but not forever, never forever. Let me know if you'd like to continue this universe with another story, perhaps another Survivors broadcast, or a new crisis at Crooked Pines.